Here at Zero to Awesome, we do a lot of building things. We also do a lot of failing at things, but today we're doing something entirely different. We're doing a legitimate, bona fide, I kid you not, how-to video with all the tools that you need and all of the parts that you need and all the steps that you need to take to install a trailer receiver and wiring on your truck. And specifically on my Ineos Grenadier, because the dealer wanted $4 grand to install a receiver and wiring in this car. And I did not want to pay them $4 grand. So today on Zero to Awesome, we're doing something serious. I think we're gonna call it Seriously Awesome. Here we have my 2024 Ineos Grenadier, the stupidest, most impractical, and most favorite car I've ever owned. And if you're following along at home trying to do this, this specifically is a Fieldmaster with the rough package, the power package, pretty much every package that you can get except for the trailer hitch, because we bought it off the lot, we couldn't configure it. If you're going to buy an Ineos and you can configure it, add the trailer hitch from the factory. It's a $900 option. The dealer quoted us $4 grand to add the tow package, you know, once we bought it. I've been on some forums and other people in the forums, they've gotten quoted about the same, between $2,500 and $4,000 to have the work done. So that seems to be a legitimate price, not a we don't want to do it, screw you price. But the good news is, for about $400 in parts and a couple hours of your time, you can actually install it yourself. And I know this because I did it and mine actually, it works. We're gonna put these pickle beers away. If you're new to the channel and you don't understand the pickle beer thing, well, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a comment. You'll get the pickle beer thing soon enough. There's no room for those, that's not a fail. We're just gonna put those right there. So to start things off, here are the parts that you need to install a receiver hitch and wiring in your Grenadier. First thing you need is a receiver hitch, and this is it. The car already has the threaded bolt holes in the back of the bumper for a receiver. This is the only thing you have to buy. This cost me about $300. I bought it from CA Tuned. They didn't give me the receiver, they just gave me a free patch when I ordered it. And it came with the bolts that you need that fit the holes on the back of your Grenadier and Loctite. There's 3 or 4 companies that make this receiver hitch. They all seem to be the same price. I bought it from CA Tune because it was the cheapest. You also need something to plug your trailer into, specifically a 3-to-2 powered converter. So not to get too technical, but modern cars don't send power to trailer lights. Old cars, you could just find the lights that go to your brake lights, find the lights that go to your blinkers, tap into those and power your trailer. New cars, modern cars, they send a signal to your tail light, and the signal tells your tail light to turn on. So what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna be tapping into the signal wires, which means we need a powered converter, because the power converter takes the signal, then also takes power from somewhere else in your car, puts the two together, and then sends power to your trailer light. It's basically a big relay that sends power to your trailer light. So older cars, you can just use a kit that plugs in. Newer cars, specifically my car, the Grenadier, to get it to work, and I tried other options, you have to use a 3-to-2 powered converter. All the parts that I used, I'm gonna list down below. Once you have your signals converted and your power going to the trailer, you need something to plug your trailer into. I bought a combo plug. It's a 7-pin, a 5-blade, and a 4-blade, all in one. Right now I'm just hooking up the 4-pin for a trailer. Eventually I'm going to figure out how to hook up a brake controller, so I went ahead and got the 7-pin. You're also going to need some odds and ends. You're going to need some splice or some butt connectors. I like to use these heat shrinkable, waterproof, solderable ones. You're also going to need some zip ties, some heat shrink, and your kit for your taillight probably comes with these wire taps that you use to tap into the signal wire or the power wire coming from your car. These suck, throw these away. Buy some posi taps. We'll use these installing this. The posi taps, so much easier to use, so much more reliable, and you can get a half dozen, which is what you need, for about $6. And guess what? Since we're doing this ourselves and we didn't get the tow package from Ineos, our common sized 7-pin plug doesn't really fit up to the holes that are already in the back of the bumper. So you're gonna need to figure out a way to connect this to your bumper. So you could do what I do and spend thousands of dollars on a 3D scanner and 3D printer and make a special part that you print out and use, or you could use, you know, $1.50 of scrap metal, or you could use zip ties. You could use anything to get it to fit. Good news is, if you have a 3D printer, or you know someone with a 3D printer, or you want to use a service that you send them files and they print parts and send them to you, the link to the file that I made that worked on the car is down below. So click it, use it. Granted, this works only on my car because I 3D scanned it. If Ineos's production quality is remotely good, it'll probably fit on your car too. And now the tools that you need a torque wrench, because we're going to want to torque down our receiver so it doesn't fall off. And whichever bolts the receiver you bought come with, you're gonna need the proper socket to tighten those bolts up. You want a panel prying popping tool, so when we take off some interior trim panels, it doesn't mar up and scratch up the inside of your truck. You need a T45 bit to get the inside panels off. You also need some 10 millimeters to loosen up basically everything. Everything I took apart was 10 millimeter. Some wire strippers, some wire cutters. You actually need a tiny little pick, and I'll show you why in a second. This was super handy. A knife, a razor blade knife, a box cutter knife, some sort of knife to cut a gasket in the car that we're gonna cut, and something to melt your heat shrink with and your butt connectors with. I use a heat gun, you can use fire, you do you. The first thing we're gonna do is install our receiver. And I've installed a couple of receivers on different cars, and it is hilarious how easy this one is to install. So grab the receiver that you bought, grab the 4 bolts that it came with, and you're gonna find 4 pre-threaded bolts right on the back of your car. You don't have to take off any body panels, you don't have to crawl under a car, you don't have to take a bumper off, you don't have to drill holes in the car, which I've had to do on other installs before. We just hold it right up here. We put the Loctite on our bolts, and then we get these started, get it snugged up, and then we're gonna come back with a torque wrench and tighten these up. Just like that, our receiver is installed. I did actually use a torque wrench. You can definitely ugga-dugga these, but keep in mind this truck can tow almost 8,000 pounds, and this receiver is going to be holding that 8,000 pounds, potentially on the highway, potentially at speed. And if you under-tighten these bolts, it could fall off. If you over-tighten these bolts, you can strip out the threads and it'll fall off. So yeah, definitely use the torque wrench and use the correct torque specifications that your receiver came with. There's different size metric bolts, all sorts of different things. My instructions said 100 foot-pounds, so that's what I torqued this to. Those keen of you might notice that my plug isn't already installed. And well, that's because it took me quite a while to figure out how to install it. There were a couple different write-ups on Ineos forums and some things on Ineos Facebook groups. And what I saw in the research I did, no one could quite figure out how to do it. There's some good starts and some people who tried different methods and unpowered things. And someone got really close with a powered converter, but never hooked it up to power. There's even someone out there who claims they figured it out and they're gonna sell kits so you can do it yourself at home, but they haven't started selling those kits yet. So it took me some attempts, some different parts, but I recorded everything. So this is gonna be more of a show and tell how I got it working. And so you'll see me in different shirts, different facial hairs, and most importantly, different levels of sweating in my unair-conditioned garage in July in Texas. We're gonna begin our show and tell with a little bit of show. And the first thing I'm gonna show you is the first step, which is you wanna get the passenger side cargo liner out of the car. And so you take your T45, you undo and you completely remove these 2 tie downs, and then down behind these 3 little holes. These are actually hard to get to. I tried to use panel tools, couldn't get them out. I actually took my little pick, put a little pick right under the corner, and you can pop these guys out to reveal your first of many 10 millimeter nuts that you're gonna loosen. Take your 10 millimeter, undo those nuts, and then use your panel prying tool to go all the way around this edge, pry this, and then seriously, just start yanking at it. It'll come straight out. If you have not taken it off before, it's gonna be very difficult to get off, because if you look at the back of it, there are lots and lots of plugs and tie downs and holds, and I have not seen a car built this well. There's a reason this thing doesn't rattle. They use probably 20 fasteners to hold down this one panel. So give it a good yank, it'll pull straight out. Also, fun tip, this took me a while to figure out, these little plugs, which are a pain to get out, when you put them back in, they're directional. There's a little notch on top. So when you plug them back in, just line that notch up, they go right back in. You would be amazed how long it took me to get those 3 little plugs in until I noticed there was a notch on the top. Once you get that cover off of there, you'll see one big wire loom that goes along the inside of the fender, and down in this corner where I have my wires connected, take your razor blade knife and just cut off very carefully a little bit of electrical tape holding this big loom of wires together, because we're going to want in here to get to all these different wires to find the right ones to hook up our control box. The converter is very straightforward. It tells you exactly what wire is your 12-volt power in, what is your ground, what's your right turn signal, left turn signal, your running lights or tail lights, and your brake light. Our green line from the converter hooks into our right tail light, which was a brown wire with a green stripe. Our stop was the red wire from the converter, which hooks into our blue with an orange stripe. Next we have our left turn, which is the yellow brown striped wire, which actually hooks into the yellow silver striped wire in the Ineos. And last we have our tail light, or our running lights. Those are our brown wire coming out of the converter, and it hooks into the green and purple striped wire in our Ineos wiring harness. Our ground, conveniently enough, we have a ground right here. There's actually grounds like every 12 to 16 inches on the Ineos. Now to get 12 volts, there's not a lot of 12 volt. Well, we have 12 volt back here, but this is 400 amps. This is for your NATO plug. That'll probably blow something up. So I got 12 volt wiring from right here inside the car where the 12 volt, your battery is. And because I have the Fieldmaster, I don't have the auxiliary battery. You can option a second auxiliary battery under your back seat. I have the subwoofer because I feel like I'm going to use music more than I'm going to use an auxiliary battery. But underneath where the subwoofer is, on the Ineos, you actually have a couple wiring connections. You can see them right down in there. You can hook into 12 volt power wherever you want. I decided to use these plugs in here, which according to some research, they might actually be some of the signal wires and power wires for a brake controller. So we'll try and figure that out on a later video. But my kit that I used for the converter came with a fuse. I installed that fuse in here. I know that is fused power, but this is, you know, an aftermarket solution that I bought for $50 on Amazon. If it goes bad, if something goes wrong, I want to be able to pop that fuse and just disconnect this whole thing. Or if I have trouble down the road, pull that fuse, isolate this whole system, make sure the thing I installed isn't causing problems in the car. So I did put the fuse up there where I can just pop the seat up and get to it. I didn't put the fuse back here where I've got to take this whole panel apart to check the fuse or pull the fuse or replace the fuse. So that hopefully never have to do it, but if I need to get that fuse, it's right there where we've got access and not buried behind a panel. Our 12 volt wire runs up under the seat. It's gonna come out, go underneath our panel. I'm gonna clean up and zip tie it right along here and get all this zip tied up and mount this with some double-sided Velcro right down in here. And once that's all buttoned up, we need to hook up our actual plug that's gonna go on the back of the car. Welcome to Underneath My Ineos, where you will wind up if you're trying to run the wire out of the back of your car to your trailer connector. And if you look up here, you can see our wire. And so what I did is I found a grommet up here behind the passenger rear wheel that goes through the car. I cut a nice little slit in the grommet, cut the end off of my trailer plug that came in the kit, and ran it through the grommet, down out of the car, and then followed the wiring loom for the NATO connector and just zip tied it all along the wiring loom for the NATO connector. And it keeps it up away from the exhaust. It keeps it behind the heat shield for your exhaust. So hopefully, if my NATO plug wires aren't gonna fry, I think my trailer plug wires aren't gonna fry. Wiring up the plug was super easy once I had the wire in the right location, and actually had the perfect distance. If I had a kit that was any shorter, I think I might have actually had to extend the wires, but this cut off the end, perfect distance. I bought the 7-blade, 4-pin and 5-pin adapter. It was super easy to wire up. The CURT wiring kit and the colors for your left turn signal, your right turn signal, your running lights and your brake light, they all matched up. So you just did blue to blue, green to green, red to red, just follow the instructions, hooked up, super simple. What wasn't simple and straightforward was trying to figure out how to mount the plug to the back of the Grenadier. So you do have 2 holes back here. They're not threaded, they're just empty, unthreaded holes. And they in no way line up with what seems to be a really common bolt pattern for these 7-way connectors. So you have some options. You could just use the bolt holes and the holes on your plug, and you could zip tie it in place. You could do what I did for the first attempt, which was I grabbed a piece of scrap aluminum, I measured and I cut and I sanded and I swore and I measured again and tried it again because I'm not the best measurer, and I made something that works. I painted it black with some black Raptor liner, truck bed liner to kind of blend in and match the texture of the bumper. This works just fine, but I wanted to take it a step further. So I got my 3D scanner out, I scanned the back of the bumper, and I made this little adapter, and I printed this out of just plastic, some PLA plastic. Not the most heat resistant, which isn't a great thing because our exhaust is right back here. So I've got 2 options. I can either print it out of a heat resistant material like ABS or TPEG, or what I did earlier today, I sent the 3D file to Send Cut Send, and for about $18, they're going to cut it out in aluminum and send it back to me. So our homemade aluminum adapter will be replaced with a nice formal 3D scanned, custom built, went through about 3 or 4 trial and error methods of this one, in aluminum, won't rust. We can mount it to the back of the car. And like I said, the link to that file is down below. You can print it out yourself, you can print it out at a library, at a makerspace, have a friend print it out, or send it to someone who will print it out, or in my case, Send Cut Send, it's gonna cut it out of aluminum, send it right back to me. One thing I did do, because like I said, these are unthreaded bolts, I have a riv nut tool, which they're about 30 bucks on Amazon. They're not super expensive, but I installed some riv nuts in here, which gives me a threaded nut stuck in the car that I can actually screw this into. if you can use bolts, good luck, but there's no way I could get my hand up behind here or get a nut on a bolt to tighten this up. So I've just got rib nuts permanently installed in the car with some stainless steel fasteners so I can just screw and unscrew my plug. So that's it. That's how I got a receiver hitch, super easy, and wiring also kind of easy installed on my Grenadier. I've used my trailer. The trailer I towed is just a 10-foot utility trailer, LED lights. It's nothing super fancy. To get your full 8,000 pound towing capacity, you're supposed to have electric brakes. So I will have to figure out how to install the brake controller at some point, but that's not happening today. All in, I probably spent around $400. $300 of that was for our tiny, tiny little receiver, and then another $100 for our connector kit, our plug, and then some of the odds and ends. And I mentioned this before, but these posi taps are awesome. Your kit is probably gonna come with these crappy little things that don't always work well. They're supposed to slice through the wire and make a connection. They rattle loose and they're not great. These posi taps, you literally screw one end into the wire and the other end harnesses, wraps around, you screw it down, and has a needle that pierces this other wire. It's a much more solid connection, and you're gonna have to make, I think, 6 or so of these connections behind a panel that you have to unbolt and unscrew to get out. So spend $6 and get these little connectors. I mean, you're already saving $3,500 compared to having the dealer do it. So get the connectors. Okay, I think that was everything. I think we can revert back to normal zero, awesome, building, failing, and pickle beering. And I did have to buy a lot of pickle beers because I've got a project going on in the backyard, and ooh, it's a doozy. We're gonna need all these. So until next time, seriousness is over, back to our regularly scheduled mayhem and nonsense. And I almost closed my garage door on the new car. That would have been pickle beer. Oh, my eyes. If you've driven your Ineos in the mud, you're gonna find all the mud you didn't wash off in your eyes down there. That's nice. It's real nice.